Most people are stuck, not because they lack talent, not because they don't have opportunities, but because they refuse to move. They're waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect feeling. But life doesn't work that way. Nothing changes until you make the first move. You're not stuck because you can't grow. You're stuck because you're standing still. The truth is, everything stays the same until you decide to move, and the moment you take that first step, everything starts to shift. The truth is, most people spend their lives stuck in the same patterns, repeating the same days over and over again, wondering why nothing ever changes. They dream of a better life, of greater success, of deeper fulfillment, but they remain exactly where they are. Why? Because nothing changes unless you make the decision to move. Stagnation isn't just about lack of progress. It's about settling into a routine that feels comfortable but ultimately leads nowhere. It's about convincing yourself that things will somehow improve on their own, that the right opportunity will magically appear, that the future will take care of itself, but it won't. The hard truth is that life doesn't improve until you make the deliberate choice to step out of where you are and start moving toward where you want to be. It's easy to look around and blame circumstances, timing, or even other people for why things aren't working out the way you hoped. It's easy to say, "I'll start when things calm down," or "I'm waiting for the right time." But the reality is, there's never going to be a perfect time. The stars aren't going to align for you. Life isn't going to hand you a roadmap with clear instructions. Growth doesn't happen because you hope for it. It happens because you decide to pursue it. You have to take control. You have to recognize that staying still is a decision in itself, and it's one that guarantees nothing will change. We all have areas in our lives where we feel stuck, in our careers, in our relationships, in our health, in our personal goals. We tell ourselves that we'll start once we feel ready, once we have more information, once we feel more confident. But readiness is an illusion. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes as a result of action. You don't become strong and capable by standing still. You become strong and capable by moving forward, even when you're uncertain, even when you're scared. The first step is always the hardest, because it's the moment when you have to leave behind the comfort of what you know. But the comfort zone is a trap. It promises safety, but it delivers nothing but stagnation. Comfort doesn't lead to growth. Discomfort does. Think about it. How many times have you looked back and thought, "I wish I had started sooner"? How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers because you hesitated, overthought, or talked yourself out of trying? The truth is, life rewards those who take action, not those who wait. Every day you spend standing still is a day you could have used to grow, to improve, to get closer to the life you want. But growth requires motion. The hardest part is deciding to move, to stop thinking about it, to stop analyzing it, to stop looking for guarantees, and to just take the first step. What holds most people back isn't lack of talent, intelligence, or potential. It's the belief that they need to feel ready before they can start. But action creates readiness. You don't need to see the whole path to begin walking it. The path reveals itself as you move. But you have to be willing to start before you feel ready. That's what separates those who grow from those who stay stuck. It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to start without them. Action creates momentum. When you take that first step, you start to see things shift. New opportunities appear, new solutions emerge, and new strengths awaken within you. But you have to initiate it. You have to stop waiting for the perfect moment and realize that the only thing standing between where you are and where you want to be is your willingness to act. Every time you push yourself to take a step forward, no matter how small, You send a signal to yourself that you are capable, that you are creating your future, rather than passively waiting for it. Stagnation is seductive because it feels safe, it's predictable, it's familiar, but it's also lifeless. Growth requires you to step into the unknown, to face the discomfort of uncertainty, and to trust that even if you stumble, you'll find your footing along the way. Growth happens when you stop avoiding the hard work and lean into it. You don't have to have all the answers, you just have to be willing to take the next step, and then the next one, and the next. Progress isn't about giant leaps. It's about consistent, intentional movement in the direction of your goals. You have to get honest with yourself. Are you stuck because the opportunity isn't there, or because you haven't taken the steps to create it? Are you waiting for the perfect moment, or are you using that as an excuse to avoid the discomfort of starting? The truth is, you already know what you need to do. You already know the first step. The question is, are you willing to take it? Because everything stays the same until you decide to move. Most people underestimate the power of consistency. They think success comes from one big breakthrough, one defining moment that changes everything. But that's not how it works. Success, real lasting success, comes from the small, consistent actions you take every single day. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. It's not about how hard you push yourself in one moment, it's about how often you show up, even when you don't feel like it, even when the results aren't immediate. It's about building habits that keep you moving forward, even when the motivation isn't there. The truth is, motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Some days you'll feel inspired, energized, ready to take on the world. But most days, you won't. Most days you'll feel tired, unmotivated, and unsure if any of it is even worth it. That's where consistency comes in. Consistency is what separates those who succeed from those who give up. It's easy to take action when you feel inspired. Anyone can do that. The real test is whether you can stay consistent when you don't feel like it, when progress is slow, when doubt creeps in, and when the payoff seems far away. That's when most people give up. But that's exactly when you need to push through. Consistency creates momentum. When you show up every day, even if you're not seeing immediate results, you're building something powerful beneath the surface. It's like planting seeds. You don't see the growth right away, but something is happening beneath the soil, and one day that growth will break through. But that only happens if you keep showing up. Most people stop before that happens. They put in the work for a few weeks, maybe even a few months, but when they don't see the results they expected, they quit. They assume it's not working. But the truth is, growth takes time. Transformation isn't instant. It's a slow build, but it's happening. And the only way to see it through is to keep going. Think about it. How many times have you started something and given up too soon? How many goals have you abandoned because you didn't see quick results? That's the mistake most people make. They expect success to come fast, and when it doesn't, they assume they're on the wrong path. But success isn't about speed, it's about endurance. It's about staying the course, even when you're not sure if it's working, even when the excitement has worn off, even when it feels boring and repetitive. That's where the magic happens. That's when the real breakthroughs occur. Not when you're feeling inspired, but when you push through the moments of doubt and keep going anyway. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. You don't have to get it right every time, you just have to keep showing up. Progress isn't linear. Some days you'll feel like you're moving backward, but consistency ensures that over time, the overall trajectory will keep rising. Small, consistent actions lead to massive results over time. It's like compounding interest. The small deposits you make every day might not seem like much at first, but over time, They add up to something extraordinary. But you have to stay in the game long enough for that to happen. Success isn't built on motivation, it's built on discipline. Motivation fades, but discipline keeps you going. Discipline is what gets you out of bed when you'd rather sleep in. Discipline is what makes you go to the gym when you don't feel like working out. Discipline is what keeps you focused on your goals when distractions are pulling you in every direction. It's not glamorous, and it's not easy, but it works. That's why so few people succeed, because most people rely on motivation, and motivation is fleeting. Discipline, on the other hand, is reliable. It's something you can control. And here's the truth: the more consistent you are, the easier it becomes. Habits are formed through repetition. When you push yourself to stay consistent, even when it's hard, you're training your mind and body to operate on autopilot. You're turning effort into habit, and once something becomes a habit, it no longer requires as much willpower or effort. It becomes part of who you are. The first few weeks or months might feel like a grind, but if you stay consistent, you'll reach a point where it no longer feels difficult. It becomes second nature, and that's when success becomes inevitable. Most people think they need motivation to take action, but it's the opposite. Action creates motivation. When you take action, even when you don't feel like it, you create a sense of momentum. That momentum fuels motivation, and that motivation fuels more action. But it starts with consistency. It starts with showing up, doing the work, and trusting the process, even when you don't see the results right away. Success isn't about intensity. It's about consistency. It's not about doing it perfectly, it's about doing it regularly. You have to decide that you're going to be the person who stays consistent, no matter what. You have to decide that you're going to keep showing up, even when it's hard, even when you're tired, even when the results aren't immediate. Because that's what separates those who succeed from those who don't. The ones who succeed aren't the most talented, they're the most consistent. And the only way to guarantee failure is to stop showing up. Everything stays the same until you move, and consistency is what keeps you moving. Most people go through life reacting to whatever happens to them. They wake up and let the day dictate how they feel. If something good happens, they're happy. If something bad happens, their mood sinks. They're stuck in a constant cycle of reaction, letting the outside world control their emotional state and their sense of progress. But that's not how you create lasting success. You have to stop being reactive and start being intentional. Success isn't about luck. It's about direction. It's about knowing where you're going and taking deliberate steps toward that destination every single day. If you don't have a clear sense of purpose, you'll drift. And when you drift, you leave your future up to chance. And that's a dangerous place to be. Most people have vague goals. They say things like, "I want to be successful," or "I want to be happy," but they don't define what that actually looks like. Without clarity, you're just hoping things work out. You're leaving your future to luck. Clarity gives you power. When you know exactly what you want, you can build a strategy to get there. You stop wasting time on distractions. You stop saying yes to things that don't align with your vision. You stop letting other people's opinions or expectations pull you off course. Clarity helps you filter out the noise and focus on what actually matters. Without it, you'll chase whatever feels good in the moment, and that will keep you stuck. Clarity isn't just about knowing what you want, it's about knowing why you want it. The why is what gives you the strength to keep going when things get hard. If you're only focused on the outcome, the money, the recognition, the status, you'll give up the moment things get tough. But if your why is deeper, if you're driven by something meaningful, you'll find a way to push through. That's why so many people quit. They chase goals that aren't connected to anything deeper. They want to get rich, but they don't know why. They want to be successful, but they're not clear on what success really means to them. Without clarity, you'll burn out. But when you know your why, you become unstoppable. Most people overestimate what they can achieve in a day and underestimate what they can achieve in a year. That's because they don't have a clear plan. They try to do too much at once, get overwhelmed, and give up. Clarity helps you focus on the long game. It helps you prioritize what matters. Instead of trying to do everything, you focus on the few things that will actually move you forward. You don't waste time on distractions. You don't burn energy chasing short-term wins that don't align with your bigger vision. Clarity helps you build momentum, and momentum creates success. Think about the most successful people in the world. They didn't get there by accident. They didn't wake up one day and suddenly have everything figured out. They had a plan. They knew exactly what they wanted, and they took consistent, deliberate action toward it. They weren't just busy, they were focused. They didn't waste time on things that didn't serve their goals. They knew what to say no to. And that's what clarity gives you, the ability to say no to what doesn't matter, so you have the time and energy to focus on what does. When you're clear on where you're going, setbacks don't derail you. Without clarity, every obstacle feels like a sign that you're on the wrong path. But when you have clarity, you understand that setbacks are part of the process. You don't get discouraged when things go wrong. You adjust and keep moving. That's why clarity is so powerful. It makes you resilient. It gives you a sense of certainty, even when things aren't going your way. You trust the process because you know where you're headed. That kind of confidence is rare, and it comes from having a clear vision. Clarity also simplifies decision-making. When you know what you want, you stop second-guessing yourself. You stop wasting time weighing every possible option. You stop asking for everyone's opinion. You trust yourself because you know what you're working toward. Most people are stuck because they're overwhelmed by too many options. They hesitate, overthink, and end up doing nothing. But clarity cuts through that confusion. It gives you the ability to make decisions quickly and confidently. You're no longer paralyzed by fear of failure because you know that even if you make a mistake, you can course correct. But clarity doesn't just happen, you have to create it. That means taking the time to reflect on what you really want, not what other people expect from you, not what society tells you should matter, but what truly matters to you. That requires honesty. It requires the willingness to sit with yourself and ask the hard questions. What kind of life do you want to build? What does success actually look like for you? What are you willing to sacrifice to get there? Most people never ask those questions. They just follow the script that's been handed to them. But real clarity comes from knowing yourself. When you're clear on what matters to you, you stop chasing other people's definitions of success. You stop trying to impress people who don't matter. You stop comparing yourself to others, and that frees up an incredible amount of mental and emotional energy. Energy you can use to actually build the life you want. Clarity is the foundation for everything else. Without it, you're just drifting. You might make progress, but it'll be inconsistent. It'll feel like one step forward and two steps back. But when you have clarity, every action is intentional. Every step moves you closer to your goal. You don't waste time. You don't waste energy. You become laser-focused on what matters. That's why the most successful people are also the most focused. They know where they're going, and they don't let anything distract them from getting there. If you want to stop feeling stuck, you have to get clear on where you're going and why it matters. That's the key to creating lasting change. Everything stays the same until you move, but you can't move with purpose until you know exactly where you're headed. Most people don't realize how much power they give away every day. They hand over their control to circumstances, to other people's opinions, to the fear of failure. They wait for the right moment, for the perfect opportunity, for someone to give them permission to take action. And that's exactly why they stay stuck. Life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. Success doesn't show up when it's convenient. If you keep waiting for the stars to align, you'll be waiting forever. The truth is, the perfect moment doesn't exist. But action creates momentum. You don't need to have it all figured out to start moving. You just need to start. Clarity comes through action, not the other way around. Most people hesitate because they're scared of making the wrong choice. They don't want to waste time or effort on something that might not work, so they overthink, they analyze, they wait for some kind of certainty before they act. But the problem is, certainty comes after action. It's through trying, failing, and adjusting that you figure out what works and what doesn't. You can't think your way into success. You have to act your way into it. Sitting around waiting for a sign or the perfect plan is just another form of procrastination. It's an excuse to avoid the discomfort of starting. But nothing changes until you move. When you take action, you create momentum. Even small actions compound over time. You might not see the results right away, but the simple act of moving forward builds confidence. It shifts your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's stuck or unsure, and you start seeing yourself as someone who's taking charge. That shift in identity is powerful. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through action. Every time you push through resistance and take a step forward, you reinforce the belief that you can handle whatever comes your way, and that's how you develop the kind of unshakable confidence that leads to real success. Most people underestimate the power of momentum. They think success is about talent or luck, but it's really about consistency. It's about showing up and putting in the work, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Motivation is fleeting. It's unreliable, but discipline is different. Discipline is what allows you to keep going when motivation fades. And discipline is built through action. The more you take action, the more disciplined you become. It's a feedback loop. Action creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence fuels more action. But it all starts with that first step. The biggest enemy of progress is perfectionism. Perfectionism makes you think that you have to have everything figured out before you start. That's a lie. The most successful people didn't have perfect plans when they started. They figured it out along the way. They took imperfect action. They made mistakes, learned from them, and adjusted. That's how growth happens. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be willing to learn as you go. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the process. Every failure gives you feedback. It shows you what works and what doesn't. But you don't get that feedback unless you're willing to take the risk of starting. Taking action also forces you to face your fears. Fear thrives in inaction. When you sit still and think about everything that could go wrong, fear grows. But when you take action, fear loses its grip. You realize that most of the things you were afraid of were just illusions, stories you made up in your head. The reality is almost never as bad as the fear. And even if things don't go the way you hoped, you'll handle it, you'll adjust, you'll adapt, and you'll come out stronger on the other side. But you won't know that unless you take the leap. Action also attracts opportunities. When you're moving, when you're putting yourself out there, you create openings for success to find you. People notice momentum. Doors start to open. Resources show up. But those opportunities don't appear when you're standing still. You have to be in motion for the right people and the right circumstances to align with you. Success isn't about luck. It's about positioning yourself to be in the right place at the right time. And you do that by taking consistent action. Most people think they need more motivation to get started, But motivation follows action. The simple act of starting creates a shift in your energy. When you move, you feel better. You stop feeling stuck. You start to see progress, even if it's small. And that progress fuels motivation to keep going. It's not the other way around. If you wait to feel motivated before you act, you'll never move. You have to decide to take action even when you don't feel like it. That's how you build real momentum. Stop overthinking. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop trying to figure out every detail before you start. Just start. Take one step, any step, and then take another. Let action teach you what works and what doesn't. Let momentum build your confidence. You don't need to have it all figured out, you just need to be willing to move forward. Clarity comes through action. Confidence comes through action. Success comes through action. Everything stays the same until you move. So, start moving. One of the most powerful truths about success is that the breakthrough you're looking for usually lies just on the other side of resistance. Most people quit right before they reach that point. They put in the work, face some setbacks, and then start to doubt whether it's even worth it. That's when they stop showing up consistently. They convince themselves that maybe it wasn't meant to be, that maybe it's just not in the cards for them. But the truth is, the breakthrough doesn't come from luck. It comes from persistence. It comes from pushing through the resistance when every part of you wants to quit. That's where the magic happens. Most people misunderstand what resistance really is. Resistance isn't a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's a sign that you're getting close to something meaningful. Resistance shows up when you're stretching beyond your comfort zone, when you're about to grow. Your mind will try to protect you by convincing you to turn back. It'll tell you that it's too hard, that it's not working, that you're wasting your time. But that's not reality, that's fear. And the only way to beat fear is to keep moving forward in spite of it. Success isn't about never feeling fear or doubt. It's about learning to act even when you feel it. It's about deciding that your goal matters more than your comfort. Every person who's ever achieved anything great has faced resistance. They've doubted themselves. They've felt like giving up. But they kept going. That's the difference between people who succeed and people who... It's not talent or intelligence, it's persistence. It's the willingness to keep going even when it feels like nothing is working. The truth is, most people give up way too soon. They expect success to come quickly. They think that if they're not seeing massive results right away, something must be wrong. But success is rarely instant. It's a process of showing up consistently, day after day, even when you don't see immediate results. That's where most people lose. They think effort equals results, and when the results don't come fast enough, they assume it's not working. But that's not how growth works. Growth is happening beneath the surface, long before you see it. Just because you don't see results doesn't mean nothing is happening. Every action you take is building momentum. It's creating internal shifts that will eventually translate into external success. Think about a bamboo tree. When you plant the seed, you water it consistently, but nothing happens for a long time. You don't see any growth above the surface, but beneath the soil, the roots are growing deep and strong. And then, almost overnight, the bamboo shoots up rapidly. That's how success works. The growth happens beneath the surface, long before you see the results. But if you stop watering it too soon, if you give up because you don't see progress, you'll never experience that breakthrough. Most people give up before their bamboo has a chance to break through the soil. They stop showing up right before they were about to win. Don't let that be you. That's why consistency matters so much, more than intensity. Anyone can work hard for a few weeks or a few months, but success comes from the person who's willing to stay in the game longer than anyone else. It's the person who's still showing up when everyone else has quit. When you stay consistent, even when it's hard, you build resilience. You become the kind of person who can handle setbacks without falling apart. And that kind of mental toughness becomes your competitive edge. Success isn't about how hard you can go when you feel good. It's about how committed you stay when you don't feel like it at all. The key is to stop measuring progress by immediate results. Most of the growth that matters happens internally before it shows up externally. You become stronger, you build confidence, you sharpen your skills. You develop the kind of resilience that allows you to handle bigger challenges down the road. Every time you push through resistance, you build that strength, and eventually you reach a tipping point where all the effort you've put in starts to compound. That's when things start to click. That's when you start to see the results you've been working toward. But you don't get there if you quit too soon. Most people don't realize how close they are to a breakthrough when they give up. They think the pain and the struggle are signs that they're failing, but it's actually the opposite. The struggle means you're getting close. The hardest part is always right before the breakthrough. That's why persistence matters more than anything else. It's not about how smart you are, how talented you are, or even how hard you work. It's about how long you're willing to stay in the game. When you understand that resistance is part of the process, you stop seeing setbacks as signs that you should quit. You start seeing them as signs that you're on the right track. So when you feel like quitting, when you feel like it's not working, that's exactly when you need to double down. That's when you need to push through. Most people stop at the first sign of discomfort. But you're not most people. You're the person who understands that the resistance is proof that you're growing. So stay in the game. Keep showing up. Keep moving forward even when it feels impossible. Your breakthrough is closer than you think, but you'll never see it unless you keep going.